He was a good man who loved helping people, but when he needed help, no one came. Watch this story about Alhaji Musa, the man who no one came to his aid when he needed help. Alhaji Musa Adebayo was a man that carried weight. At 45, he was the epitome of success, a man whose wealth seemed as boundless as the Atlantic Ocean, lapping at the shores of Victoria Island. His mansion in Ikoyi was a testament to his rise from the humble beginnings in a small village in Ogun State. Musa, the son of a cocoa farmer, had built an empire through sheer grit, a sharp mind, and an uncanny knack of spotting opportunity in Nigeria's chaotic business landscape. Musa's wealth came from diverse ventures: a chain of filling stations across the southwest, a logistic company that transported goods from Apapa port to every corner of the country, and real estate investment that dotted Lagos, Abuja, and Port Harcourt. But it wasn't just his money that made him a legend. Musa was known for his heart, a heart that seemed to beat for others as much as for himself. In a society where wealth often bred arrogance, Musa remained a man of the people. He was the benefactor of countless lives. His cousins, siblings, and extended family owed him for their education, homes, and businesses to his generosity. When his childhood friend Chukwudi lost his job at a bank, Musa didn't hesitate to set him up with a poultry farm that now supplied eggs to half of Lagos. When his niece Aisha dreamed of studying medicine abroad, Musa paid her tuition at a university in the UK and even covering her living expenses. His philanthropy extended beyond family. He built a primary school in his village, sank boreholes in communities without clean water, and sponsored scholarships for indigent students. Every December, his mansion became a hub of celebration, where he hosted lavish parties for friends, families, and even strangers, distributing bags of rice, cartons of chicken, and cash to those in need. Alhaji Musa, the man with a golden heart, people called him. His phone rang endlessly with requests for help, and he rarely said no. "If God had blessed me, who am I to hold it?" he would say, his deep voice resonating with sincerity. His wife Fatima, a soft-spoken woman with a keen sense of business herself, often cautioned him about his boundless generosity. "Musa, you can't carry everyone's burden," she'd say, her eyes filled with both love and concern. But Musa would laugh it off, quoting a proverb: "The river that forgets its source will dry up." His friends, a mix of business tycoons, politicians, and childhood companions, flocked to him. Men like Chief Okonkwo, a oil magnate, and Shegun, his best friend from secondary school, were constant at his side. They drank his imported wines, drove cars he gifted them, and leaned on his influence to secure contracts. Musa never saw their reliance as a burden to him. It was the price of brotherhood. But wealth, like the Lagos rains, can be unpredictable. It pours heavily one moment and vanishes the next, leaving only puddles to prove it was ever there. The trouble began subtly, like a crack in a dam. Nigeria's economy, always a precarious beast, took a sharp downturn. Fresh subsidies were removed, inflation skyrocketed, and the naira plummeted against the dollar. Musa's filling station, once cash cows, began to struggle as fuel prices soared and customers cut back. His logistic company faced rising costs for spare parts and diesel, and clients delayed payments, citing their own financial woes. Musa, ever the optimist, believed it was a passing storm. He dipped into his savings to keep the business afloat, confident that things would stabilize. Then came the blow that would change everything. Musa had invested heavily in a real estate project in Abuja, a luxury estate meant to cater to the city's growing elite. The project was his pride, a legacy he hoped he would outlive him. He had partnered with a powerful politician, Senator Ibrahim, who promised government backing and swift approval. Musa poured millions into the venture, selling off some assets to fund it. But Senator Ibrahim, a man with a smile as slippery as an eel, had other plans. Unknown to Musa, the senator was embroiled in a corruption scandal, and when the Economic and Financial Crime Commission swooped in, they froze his account, and Musa, as his name was tied to the project. Overnight, Musa's world crumbled. The estate project was halted, his accounts were inaccessible, and his businesses, already strained, began to collapse like a house of cards. Creditors came knocking, demanding repayment for loans he had taken to keep his ventures running. Suppliers refused to deliver without upfront payment. His filling stations shut down one by one, and his logistics trucks sat idle, gathering dust. The EFCC investigation dragged on with no clear end in sight, and Musa's name, once synonymous with success, became tainted by association. He turned to his friends for help. Surely the men he had lifted would lift him up in return. He called Chief Okonkwo, who had once wept in gratitude when Musa bailed him out of a failed deal. "Alhaji, things are too tight for me too," Okonkwo said, his voice distant over the phone. "You know how the economy is, let's talk later." But later never came. Shegu, his best friend, was even more evasive. "Musa, you know I'd help if I could, but my wife is sick, and my kids' school fees." His excuses strayed off in silence. One by one, the people Musa had helped turned their backs. Some stopped answering his calls. Others claimed they were traveling or busy. Even Chukwudi, whose poultry farm Musa had funded, mumbled something about business challenges and offered nothing but apologies. His family was no different. Cousins who had lived in his guest houses, driven his cars, and eaten at his table suddenly became scarce. His younger brother Tunde, who owed his car dealership to Musa's startup capital, claimed he was still building and couldn't spare a dime. Aisha, the niece studying medicine in the UK, sent a curt message. "Uncle, I'm so sorry to hear, but I'm just a student. I don't have anything to give." Musa read her words, remembering the tears in her eyes when he handed her the acceptance letter to her dream school. The betrayal stung deeper than the poverty. Fatima stood by him, her strength a quiet anchor in the storm. But even she couldn't hide her worry as their savings dwindled. They sold their second car, then the third. The mansion in Ikoyi, once a symbol of their triumph, became a burden. The electricity was cut when they couldn't pay the bills, and the generator, once a reliable backup, broke down without funds for repair. Musa, who had never known hunger, began to understand his groaning ache. The final blow came when they lost the mansion. Unable to keep up with mortgage payments, the bank seized it. Musa, Fatima and their two children, Zainab and Yusuf, moved to a cramped two-bedroom flat in Surulere. The children, who had attended the light private schools, were enrolled into a local public school where the classrooms were overcrowded and the teachers overworked. Musa's pride, once as tall as the skyscraper of Lagos, was reduced to ashes. The street of Lagos, once his playground, now mocked him. People whispered as he passed, their voice dripping with pity or scorn. "That's Alhaji Musa," they say. He used to be big, but see him now. The same people who had flocked to his parties, who had called him chairman and oga, now crossed the street to avoid him. Musa felt the weight of their rejection, a burden heavier than his empty pockets. He tried to rebuild. He applied for loans, but banks turned him away, citing his frozen account and the EFCC case. He pitched business ideas to former partners, but they saw him as a liability. Desperate, he took a job as a driver for a small transport company, earning a fraction of what he once spent on a single meal. The work was grueling, the pay meager, but Musa swallowed his pride. He had a family to feed. One evening, as he sat in the dim light of their Surulere flat, Musa broke down. Fatima found him with his hands in his head, tears streaming down his eyes. "What did I do wrong?" he whispered. "I gave everything to everyone and now they have left me to drown." Fatima knelt beside him, her eyes glistening. "You did nothing wrong, Musa," she said. "You gave too much, maybe, but that's who you are." Her words were balm, but they couldn't erase the pain. Musa began to see the world differently. The Nigeria he had known when loyalty and gratitude were currency seemed like a mirage. He thought of the Yoruba proverb he once loved: the river that forgets its source will dry up. But what happens when the river gives away all its water? Yet even in his despair, a spark remained. Musa was no stranger to struggle. He had clawed his way out of poverty once before, and he resolved to do it again. He began small, selling second-hand clothes at a market store. Fatima joined him. They worked long hours, saving every kobo, and slowly their store grew. Customers drawn by Musa's warmth and integrity became regulars. He didn't have much, but he had his integrity, and that he realized was worth more than gold. One day, a young man approached the store. He was thin, with eyes that spoke of hunger and ambition. "Sir, I know you," he said. "You paid my school fees when I was a boy. My name is Emeka." Musa barely remembered, but Emeka's gratitude was real. He was now a software developer, working for a tech startup in Yaba. "I want to help," Emeka said. He offered to build a website for Musa's business free of charge to reach more customers online. Emeka's gesture was a flicker of hope, a reminder that not all seeds Musa had planted were barren. Slowly, others emerged, people whose life he had touched in small forgotten ways. A woman whose hospital bill he had paid years ago brought her friends to buy from his store. A teacher from his village school sent him a small sum saying, "You gave my student a future. Let me help you now." These acts, though modest, were lifelines. Musa's business grew, not to the height of his former empire, but enough to move his family to a better flat and send his children to a decent school. The EFCC case eventually cleared, revealing that Senator Ibrahim had acted alone, but the damage was done. Musa's wealth was gone, and so were the fair-weather friends and family who had surrounded him. Yet in his fall, Musa found clarity. He learned who his true allies were: Fatima, his rock; Emeka, the boy who remembered; and a handful of others who valued him for his heart, not his wallet. He learned that wealth could buy loyalty, but only character could earn it. And he learned that a man's worth is not in his bank account, but in the lives he touched, and the strength he showed when the world turned his back. Years later, Musa stood at his market store, now a small shop with a sign that read Adebayo's Enterprise. It was modest, but it was his. A customer, an old man with a weathered face, paused to chat. "You look familiar," he said. "Weren't you that big man, Alhaji Musa?" Musa smiled, no trace of bitterness in his eyes. "I'm still Musa," he replied, "just a different kind of big." The old man nodded as if he understood, and as Musa handed him a neatly wrapped package, he felt a quiet pride. The river had not dried up. It has simply found a new course. Please like and subscribe to my YouTube channel, and thank you for watching.